The temperature is falling. You can feel it in your bones before your skin even registers the change. Somewhere in the northern wilderness, the sun has been gone for 3 hours. A modern human, dressed in ordinary clothes, stands alone in a clearing. No phone signal, no shelter, no fire. The thermometer reads -20 degrees Celsius. In approximately 90 minutes, without intervention, this person will be dead, not in a day, not in a few hours. 90 minutes is all the time that separates a living, breathing person from a frozen corpse. We exist in an age of climate-controlled rooms, instant warmth at the touch of a button, and emergency services a phone call away. We have forgotten what night truly means. For most of human history, darkness was not an inconvenience. It was not a time for late-night television or scrolling through social media. It was a predator. It hunted the unprepared with absolute patience and complete indifference. Consider the physiology of what happens when the human body confronts extreme cold without protection. Your core temperature sits at roughly 37 degrees Celsius. This narrow band of warmth is the only thing keeping your organs functioning, your blood flowing, your brain thinking. Drop just 2 degrees below that threshold, and confusion begins. You slur your words. You stumble. You make decisions that make no sense. Drop 4 degrees, and your heart starts to lose its rhythm, fluttering chaotically in your chest. Drop 6 degrees, and you become a corpse lying in the snow. The body fights this with everything it has. Blood vessels near the skin constrict violently, pulling warm blood toward the vital organs. You shiver uncontrollably, your muscles burning through glucose in a desperate attempt to generate heat. Your fingers and toes go numb first, sacrificed by a body making brutal calculations about what it can afford to lose. But without external heat, without shelter, without fuel, this is a battle you cannot win. The cold is patient, it has all night. In the winter of 1812, Napoleon's Grande Armée learned this lesson in the most horrific way imaginable. Soldiers who had conquered most of Europe froze to death by the thousands during the retreat from Moscow. Temperatures plunged to -30 degrees Celsius. Men who had marched triumphantly into Russia just months before now stumbled through snowdrifts and rags. They lay down to rest and never woke up. Their bodies were found frozen solid, still clutching their rifles, their faces fixed in expressions of exhausted surrender. The cold killed more of them than any Russian bullet ever did. Of the 600,000 soldiers who invaded, fewer than 100,000 returned home. But extreme cold is only one kind of deadly night. Imagine instead a different scenario. A small boat adrift in the open Pacific Ocean, 300 kilometers from the nearest landmass. The sun sets, painting the water in shades of orange and red, and with it goes any hope of rescue until morning. The water temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. It sounds warm enough. It sounds almost pleasant. It is not. Water conducts heat away from the human body roughly 25 times faster than air. A person submerged in water at that temperature will become hypothermic within 6 hours. Colder water accelerates this dramatically. At 10 degrees, you have perhaps an hour before you lose the ability to swim. At 4 degrees, you have minutes before your muscles stop responding to your commands entirely. Survivors of shipwrecks have described the progression with terrible clarity. First, there is the cold shock response, an involuntary gasp that can fill your lungs with water if your head is submerged. Your heart rate spikes dangerously. Panic sets in immediately. Then comes the swimming failure, as your limbs grow heavy and uncoordinated, as your fingers curl into useless claws. Finally, there is the quiet descent into unconsciousness, as your core temperature drops below the threshold where awareness can be sustained. You simply slip beneath the waves. The crews of fishing vessels lost in the North Atlantic have known this calculus for centuries. They developed rituals around it, the careful maintenance of survival suits, the obsessive checking of radio equipment, the unspoken understanding that the sea at night is an entirely different beast than the sea at noon. Every sailor who has worked those waters understands in their bones that the darkness transforms the ocean into something hungry. Now consider the opposite extreme, the desert at night. There is a common misconception that deserts are purely hot. They are not. They are lands of extremes, of violent swings between brutal heat and bitter cold. In the Sahara, temperatures that reached 50 degrees Celsius during the day can plummet to near freezing after sunset. The sand that burned your feet at noon becomes cold enough to drain your body heat by midnight. The air, so dry it cracks your lips within hours, pulls moisture from your lungs with every breath you take. A person lost in the desert at night faces a peculiar kind of double threat. Dehydration from the day continues its work on your organs, even as the temperature drops. Your blood thickens, becoming sluggish in your veins. Your kidneys strain to filter waste with insufficient water. Your brain, which is roughly 75% water, begins to function erratically. You make poor decisions. You walk in circles without realizing it. You see lights that are not there, mirages born of desperation. Ancient desert peoples understood this intimately. The Bedouin wrapped themselves in layers of wool not to stay warm during the day, but to survive the night. They traveled by moonlight when the temperatures were bearable and sheltered during the killing hours of noon. They carried knowledge passed down through countless generations about where water could be found, which plants could be eaten, how to read the stars for navigation. Without this cultural inheritance, the desert night was a death sentence waiting to be executed. Perhaps nothing illustrates human fragility more starkly than altitude. At sea level, the air we breathe is roughly 21% oxygen. This is sufficient for our needs. At 5,000 meters, the air is still 21% oxygen, but the atmospheric pressure has dropped by nearly half. Each breath delivers far less oxygen to your bloodstream. Your heart races to compensate, pounding in your chest. Your head throbs with a relentless ache. Your judgment deteriorates in ways you cannot perceive. Climbers on Everest call the region above 8,000 meters the death zone. Here, the human body cannot acclimatize. It can only die more slowly. Cells deprived of oxygen begin to fail systematically. Fluid accumulates in the lungs, drowning you from within. The brain swells against the skull, creating pressure that distorts thought and perception. Climbers have been found dead in their tents, having simply stopped breathing in their sleep. Others have been discovered sitting upright, frozen solid, their headlamps still on, as if they merely paused to rest and never found the strength to continue their descent. The night at extreme altitude is uniquely dangerous because it robs you of the one thing that might save you: clear thinking. Hypoxia makes you confident. It makes you believe you are fine when you are dying. It makes you take off your gloves because you feel warm, even as frostbite blackens your fingers. It makes you sit down to rest, just for a moment, and that moment becomes eternity. There are historical accounts of individuals who survived nights that should have killed them, nights that defied probability and challenged everything we understand about human limits. In 1971, a 17-year-old girl named Juliane Kopke fell 3,000 meters into the Peruvian rainforest when her plane disintegrated in a thunderstorm. She was strapped to a row of seats that spiraled down through the canopy, somehow slowing her descent enough to survive impact. She landed in the jungle, injured, alone, wearing nothing but a thin dress and one sandal. She had no food, no tools, no way to call for help. She survived 11 days by following a stream, wading through water infested with caimans and piranhas, until she found a logging camp. Her survival was a combination of extraordinary luck, childhood knowledge from her parents who were zoologists, and an absolute refusal to stop moving forward. In 1847, members of the Donner Party, trapped by early snowfall in the Sierra Nevada mountains, endured months of nights so cold that their makeshift shelters became frozen tombs. Some survived by huddling together for warmth, by rationing meager food supplies to the point of starvation, by burning anything that would catch fire. Others did not survive at all. The accounts that emerged later spoke of desperation that modern humans, in our heated homes and stocked pantries, can scarcely imagine. These stories share common threads. Survival in lethal nights rarely comes from strength alone. It comes from knowledge, from preparation, from the ability to think clearly when everything in your body screams for you to panic. It comes from understanding what your body needs and finding ways to provide it against impossible odds. The human stress response is a double-edged blade. Adrenaline sharpens your senses and quickens your reflexes. It can help you escape a predator or fight off an attacker in the moment. But in a survival situation that stretches across hours or days, adrenaline becomes poison. Your body burns through its energy reserves at an accelerated rate. Your muscles fatigue faster than they should. Your judgment becomes impulsive rather than calculated. You make mistakes that cost you everything. The people who survive deadly nights are often those who can override this response. They force themselves to sit still when every instinct demands movement. They make shelter a priority even when their terror begs them to run blindly into the darkness. They ration their energy and their resources with cold precision. They think in hours and days, not seconds and minutes. There is something deeply humbling about recognizing how thin the margin is between life and death. We have built civilizations that insulate us from this truth. We have central heating and air conditioning, weatherproof clothing and emergency services, satellite communication and GPS navigation. We have convinced ourselves that we have conquered nature, that we have risen above the brutal calculus of survival that governed our ancestors. But step outside this cocoon of technology, and the old equations reassert themselves with brutal speed. A broken leg in the backcountry becomes a death sentence. A wrong turn in the wilderness becomes a one-way trip into oblivion. A storm at sea becomes a mass grave. A single night without shelter becomes a countdown to cardiac arrest. Our ancestors did not have our technology, but they had something we have largely lost. They had intimate knowledge of their environment, earned through generations of observation and experience. They understood the rhythms of temperature and weather. They knew which plants were edible and which were poison. They could navigate by stars and read the land like a map written in stone and soil. They had built, through millennia of trial and error and countless deaths, a body of survival wisdom that we have allowed to atrophy in our comfortable modern existence. When night falls and the temperature drops and the distance from help stretches beyond reach, we discover something uncomfortable about ourselves. We discover that we are not the masters of this planet. We are merely tenants, permitted to exist in a narrow band of conditions that we did not create and cannot control. We discover that our dominion over nature is an illusion maintained by infrastructure that can fail at any moment. The night that would kill a modern human in minutes is not a hypothetical scenario. It is not a thought experiment or a dramatic exaggeration. It is waiting, patient, and indifferent, beyond the edge of every city, beneath every ocean, atop every mountain. It is the original condition of human existence, temporarily held at bay by our fragile constructions of warmth and light and safety. And in that darkness, in that cold, in that profound silence where no help will come no matter how loudly you scream, we remember what we truly are. Soft creatures, warm-blooded and vulnerable, thin-skinned and easily broken, alive only by the grace of our ingenuity and the accumulated wisdom of those who came before us and figured out how to survive long enough to pass on what they learned. The night does not hate us. It does not love us. It does not know we exist. It simply is, as it has always been, as it will be long after our species has vanished from this planet. And against its vast indifference, we have built everything we call civilization, every fire and shelter and city, every blanket and wall and heating system. We are the descendants of survivors. Every one of us carries the genetic legacy of ancestors who made it through countless deadly nights. They found shelter when there was none. They made fire when matches did not exist. They huddled together for warmth and told stories to keep the fear at bay. They did whatever was necessary to see the sunrise. That is worth remembering. On these comfortable nights, when the darkness outside your window seems tame and distant, the night is still out there, unchanged since the beginning of time. And somewhere, at this very moment, someone is learning what our ancestors knew in their bones. The margin between living and dying is thinner than we like to believe, and the night is very, very long.